Good morning. Well, it's so nice to hear that back. Let's do that again. Good morning.
Good morning.
Yes. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of Northern Nevada. This is our multi-platform service inside the Great Hall, online, up in the cloud and beyond, where it is our mission to grow together in love, faith, justice, and joy. It is a joy to be with you on this Sunday as we connect for a time of reflection and introspection. We welcome all to be part of us regardless of racial identity, ethnic background, age, economic circumstances, educational achievement, judicial history, immigration status, sexual orientation, or gender identity. We here at UUFNN are growing, not just in numbers, but in our faith that by being and working together, we can bring about justice and build a compassionate community. I'm Bill Miller. Personal pronouns, he, him, his. Personal passions, climate change, social justice. It is my pleasure to serve as your worship associate this morning for the first in a series called Rising Strong by Reverend Karen Foster. If this is your first time visiting us, welcome. We're glad to have you join us. If you are online, feel free to contact the office or our website for more information. You can also click on the link in the chat box to fill out the newcomer form and sign up for our newsletter that will keep you informed of the activities here at UUFNN. If you're here in person, please see one of us to get you to someone who can give you that information. Please note that due to the multi-platform nature of this service, there will not be a formal offertory this morning. We do welcome your offerings. Helps keep the light on and cameras rolling. So here's how you can give. If you are present in person, please drop your offering at one of the receptacles inside. There's one there at the entry and one there near the lobby. If you're following virtually, please text 73256. That's 73256. Type in UUFNN and hit send. Or you can also mail a check to the office here at 780 Del Monte Lane, Reno 89511. Regrettably, COVID is still lingering, so if you're here in person, please follow safety protocols. Wear a mask, indoors or out, stay 3 feet apart for each person or household. Only 2 in the restroom at a time, congregate outdoors, and so countercultural for us UUs, no direct hugging. Just air hugs or elbow bumps. For those of you meeting on Zoom, please note that you can update your name on screen, which helps everyone know who you are. Note that you will remain muted during the service, but you can use the chat box for comments, especially during the prayer and meditation sessions. As a courtesy, please refrain from posting announcements while folks are presenting. Following the service, I invite you to join us for coffee hour, where we will break into small groups to visit virtually, face-to-face. If you're a newcomer, you can join a special coffee hour group to meet with some old-timers who can answer your questions, any questions you might have. If you're here in person, you can congregate outdoors for coffee and conversation. Again, I'm Bill Miller, your worship associate for today's service. Thank you for all still being with us this morning and enduring my litany of rules, regulations, and procedures. Next up, Jennifer Cullison of our Borderlands Institute team has a word about our offering for October. Jennifer?
Hi, everybody. The BJT is a FaithWorks program. It's the Borderlands Justice Team. Over the last year, it has been involved in 3 main activities. Since November 2020, the BJT has coordinated 6 letter writing campaigns in which various UUFNN members have written letters to governing officials about pressing issues related to the human dignity and human rights of undocumented immigrants. The BJT has also been working with community organizations to promote the causes of undocumented immigrants. Finally, the Realities of Undocumented Immigrants Oral History Project, the RIO Project, has been the brainchild of the BJT. The RIO Project documents and makes available the stories of Nevada's undocumented immigrants, but for all, but especially for scholars, activists, legislators, and policymakers seeking to advocate for our undocumented population. The stories afford these researchers specific examples of the human impact of U.S. immigration policy, thereby demonstrating the kinds of legislative and policy relief that will best improve the plight of our undocumented community. To date, the RIO Project has established partnerships with several organizations across the state, secured faculty and undergraduate research funds at UNR to employ 2 bilingual students each semester, and is now building a base of multilingual volunteer interviewers. So far, 15 narrators have shared or are about to share their stories in their chosen language in a safe and welcoming environment. Over the next month, the RIO Project intends to release to the UNR library the first 10 interviews transcribed and translated for access in at least 2 languages, usually English and Spanish. By June 2022, the intention is to collect about 50 stories. Support from the UUFNN can help the BJT to fund gift cards or other small tokens of gratitude for those who share their stories and for volunteers who accomplish some of the interviews. Thanks.
The series that we launched together today is called Rising Strong. I invite you to reflect on and ponder what that might mean for each of us individually and what it means for us as a community, because it was designed over the next few weeks with you in mind and with our community in mind. So I invite you to come fully present, body, mind, heart, and spirit, to what is here for each of us on this day together. Rosie's going to light our chalice for us this morning as I offer to you our chalice lighting words for today by Beverly and David Bumbaugh. I invite you to listen particularly carefully to these words. Our community exists to proclaim the truth that each human being is infinitely precious, that the meaning of our lives lies hidden in the interactions with each other. We wish to be a place where we encounter each other with wonder, with appreciation, with expectation, where we call out each other's strengths, wisdom, and compassion that we never knew we had. I'm going to remind us a little more of our COVID safety protocols, and that is that, as Bill described, we have a contactless offering. And also going to remind you that at this point in our coming back together, we're not having actual congregational singing. So what that means is you're invited just to mouth the words or sing along in your hearts. But at this point, we haven't sanctioned full congregational singing. So that's where we are. And with that, I'm going to invite you to join me in welcoming back the Bingsons.
Hope comes from the place where the hurt comes. I said, hope comes from the place where the hurt comes. I said, hope comes from the place where the hurt comes. I said, hope comes from the place where the hurt comes. I said, hope comes from the place where the hurt comes. I said, hope comes from the place where the hurt comes. I said, hope comes from the place where the hurt comes. I said, hope comes from the place where the hurt comes. The part of you that is not all right, yeah, is also the part that loves the light. And the part of you that is suffering is the part that calls in change. And you don't have to feel ashamed. There is nothing to forgive. The part of you that is crying out is the part that wants to live. Yeah, hope comes from the place where the hurt comes. I said, hope comes from the place where the hurt comes. I said, hope comes from the place where the hurt comes. I said, hope comes from the place where the hurt comes. When your world is burning down, well, getting hot is a sane reaction, but one in need of action, because your spirit needs protection. So gather up your sinew and gather up your faction. Hope is not a feeling, hope is an action. Hope comes from the place where the hurt comes. I said, hope comes from the place where the hurt comes. I said, hope comes. We are not all right. I said, hope comes. We are not all right. I'm gonna fall down on my knees.
That's not living.
I'm gonna say, will you help me please?
That's not living.
I'm gonna say I'm not all right.
That's not living.
I'm just trying to make it through this night. Yeah.
That's not living.
I'm gonna fall down on my knees. Yeah. Oh, will we say, help me please? Help me please. We can say, hey, we are not all right. We are not all right. We can help each other get through the night. Cause hope comes from the center of the hurt, in the middle of the dirt. We'll plant a seed and watch it grow into something we don't already know.
Hope comes from the place where the hurt comes. Hope comes from the center of the struggle. You know, whenever we go somewhere, go through a difficult experience, and we start to see ourselves just starting to rise out of it a little bit, just starting to recover, just starting to gather our strength. And so it's a little like seeing that light at the very distant end of the tunnel. And we sure hope it's not an oncoming train. Although that's a little how things have felt sometimes over the last year and a half. And so when we think about rising strong, we think about, like the Beanson said, being in that place deep in the darkness. And it is from that place that something can sprout and grow. And the only way that that can happen, the only way that that can even start, the only way that we can think about rising strong is to start from where we are. We cannot possibly start from where we aren't yet. And so today, as we start our Rising Strong series, we're going to acknowledge and consider and reflect on and think about exactly where we are and ground ourselves in where we are so that we can begin to take those next steps forward into Rising Strong.
Make us a worthy, our sanctuary, each made holy, loved right through, with thanksgiving, may our living sanctuary, make us so worthy, our sanctuary, each made holy, love right through, with thanksgiving, we are a living sanctuary.
We join our hearts and our minds and our spirits together in our time of community prayer and meditation. Ground of our being, spirit of life and love. Indeed, make us aware we are a sanctuary, each made holy, loved right through. With thanksgiving, we are a living sanctuary anew. I'm going to invite us this morning to consider the yellows and the reds and the oranges of the changing leaves of fall. The vibrancy that lives in those colors. And may we breathe that in and take that in and allow that vibrancy to touch us in the deepest of places. I'm so grateful that we can count on the change of the seasons to remind us that there are cycles, natural cycles that we can identify with, to remind us that change comes, change happens, and to remind us that we can begin anew. We can take first steps on a new journey. And we can watch those yellow leaves on the aspens shimmering and vibrating and know that that life lives in us, that vibrancy, that awake and enlivened ness. We gather together all of the meditations, the prayers, the hopes, the dreams, the joys and celebrations that are on our hearts this morning. I'm aware of Brad Hackton and Pat Francis, both recovering from surgery this last week. We want to lift up this morning those facing terminal illness and their caregivers. We want to lift up those who are feeling lonely and uncertain in these times. We lift up those in recovery, struggling with addiction, day by day, hour by hour. We give thanks this morning for the opportunity to experience our connections in community on Zoom, in this room, and all the ways that we're able to connect. I invite us to continue our time of community prayer and meditation in our hearts and in our minds. And those that are gathering on Zoom are welcome to record the prayers and meditations that are on your hearts this morning in our chat. We gather all of our hopes, our dreams, our celebrations, our joys, our sorrows, our concerns, and our worries. We gather them together and hold them as one in the heart of love. And we offer our gesture, what has become a piece of our identity of sorts, reminds us that we are sanctuary one to another, one hand on the heart, a palm extended outward. And those on Zoom can see that with each other in their windows, and we offer it here in a way that unites us as one community, however it is that we join. And it is our way of saying, I see you, I hear you, I'm with you. We are all in this together. Amen.
Make us so worthy, a sanctuary, each made holy, loved right through. With thanksgiving, we are living sanctuary anew. Make us so worthy, a sanctuary, each made holy, loved right through. With thanksgiving, we are living sanctuary anew.
We can, in fact, only start from where we are. We can't start from where we aren't. And so I'm going to ask you this morning, I'm going to invite you to join in viewing and taking in information from a video this morning by Reverend Sunshine Wolf, who's one of our congregational life staff persons with the UUA. And I have shared this with our Committee on Shared Ministry, with our Right Relations team, with the board, with a few different folks, and to a person, everyone who has watched this video has said, this is such important information. It helped me understand so much. I watched it and said, oh, that makes so much sense. One person told me she's on her 4th or 5th time watching it, is going to continue watching it just to take in what is here for us. The video is geared to ministers. It was made for ministers, and yet it is applicable to everyone. It is geared to congregations, and yet it is applicable to the whole of our lives. So I'm going to invite you to watch and take in what is here for us in this moment of starting to rise strong from exactly where we are.
I want to talk a little bit about the how to be aware of and respond to trauma that will exist in your system upon returning, and even now as we're dealing with it. Like, what will that transition look like, and what are the things that you need to consider as you're moving forward? In fact, many of the things that have been said even up until this point are all ways in which you can effectively be thinking about how to care for your community that has gone through a traumatic experience. And I know we have gone through a traumatic experience because my brain is fuzzy. I don't know how many of you may be familiar with the notion of, like, it's been Friday for 3 days. That happened to me last week. Or you thought it was a month ago, dates are off, you're having a hard time remembering names, all those sorts of things. And that's because trauma is experienced by the body, but it is processed through the brain. And I'm not going to get too much into the science of it, but I do want you to know one important thing, which is that when our body experiences trauma, we actually experience a chemical divide between our ability to think and the words that form a place called the Broca's area. And so you actually have a hard time describing what happened to you. And so how many of you have a hard time trying to describe what this COVID experience has been like, right? It's not an easy thing to understand or comprehend. And when you're talking about members of our congregation, we have folks who have experienced prior trauma where this has exacerbated what's already been going on in their lives and experiences and all of that. And so we want to think carefully about what is that going to mean as people come back, because this has been a traumatic experience. Trauma is simply a shock to the system, and it can be a mental shock, an emotional shock, a physical one, it can be a spiritual one. And we have lots of survivors of spiritual abuse in our congregations who may be triggered by all that's been going on. There's a lot that happens there. And so the reality is that this has been a tough time, and it has taken more energy to do everything, right? Have you felt that sense of like it just takes more energy to even do the things that felt simple or basic before? That's going to be true well into our time of return into community with each other in a physical sense, right? So as we're coming back to what folks hoped will be back to some sort of sense of normalcy, it's not going to be that. We can't turn the clock back, as was said earlier. And so it's important to know that your community is going to need you to repeat things a lot. When folks are in a trauma mindset, you have to repeat. You have to be repetitive in everything that you communicate. We normally say in healthy times to communicate things 7 times in 7 different ways. In trauma mind, you want to at least double that, if not quadruple that. So you're going to want to repeat things over and over again in as many places, and you'll get sick of hearing it, but it may be the 15th time will be the time that a group of folks finally hear something, because it's just too much. Particularly in the beginning, it's going to be a lot of information at once. And they're going to want you to try and do things the way they used to be done, or they're going to want you to do the perfect multi-platform experience that keeps all the new people that came during COVID and all the folks who, you know, are not necessarily able to come to the building and everybody in person, and have it all be perfect and good. And all of that language is white supremacy culture language, but it is also language that's about how we try and keep control when we're feeling like we're unraveling. Coming out of this process, your folks are going to feel like they're unraveling a little bit. Because when you start to come out of a traumatic experience, you start to actually have the space to feel and be aware of and process what has happened before. And so folks are going to be irrational. You're probably going to see more conflicts than you used to seeing. Folks may be more angry or quick to tears or even shut down. A simple conversation may lead to somebody disappearing for a couple of months. All these are normal things. And so you want to be able to prepare your community not just for what it means to do the practical of coming back, but what it means to care for your entire community as it is recovering from a traumatic experience. Does that make sense? Yeah. So it's not going to be instantly over. And we already know this is going to be a slow process as folks are getting vaccinated. And even after everyone's been vaccinated, for some of our folks, it still won't be safe for them to come out because of how immune compromised or other things they're dealing with. Probably won't matter how many people are vaccinated, they still may not be able to leave their homes. And so we're dealing with people in a lot of stages of engagement and where they can be in their world. Folks will start to feel tired, more depressed, more exhausted. And I want to say, when I say folks, I mean you. Not just the people you serve, but you, the leaders. Your ministers, your religious educators, your board presidents, your RE teachers, your everybody who's doing any kind of leadership in your church are going through these things too. And so you want to do the things that help care for people. Allow them to enter slowly and to resist that urgency that may come as a result of wanting to get back to things as normal. It's really common for folks after a traumatic experience to not want to talk about it anymore. Even a slight mention of COVID might get some folks a little reactive. And that's where ritual helps you, those kinds of things. There's going to be this kind of, I like the language, I didn't create this, but somebody put it in the document, trauma residue. There's going to be some residual from this experience for a long time. And so it's important to be able to keep that present. I often work with congregations and they'll say after a year, well, why do we still have to keep talking about this? And it's because humans don't get over things quickly. It takes us years, particularly communities. It can take 5 to 10 years of intentional effort to help a community do a significant amount of healing. So imagine that you're going to be doing some of this work, not for the next 6 months or a year, but probably the next 5 to 10 years of helping your congregation kind of reassess. That may sound anxiety producing, but here's the other thing. It gives you lots of room to be nimble, to think about inclusion, to focus on your mission. You don't have to solve it all. And when you take away that time pressure, it gives everybody that emotional space to kind of recover and be in community. What I want to close with is talking a little bit about the sense of urgency that can come. There can be this desire to do everything at once or to fix everything. And I think all that's going to do is land you all exhausted and feeling like you're going nowhere. Because even if your congregation is saying, we want all this to be fixed at once, they're going to be exhausted by it all changing quickly too. Does that make sense? So they may say, we really want to have worship right now. And then they get to worship and like, we want worship in the building with everybody together. And then they get there and they're overwhelmed by it because that's not what we've been doing for a year. And it's too much at once, right? So there's going to be a desire to rush and there's gonna be like, oh, no, 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 no. And that's a normal thing. So like kind of in trauma recovery work, we talk about having a window that has a shade, and the shade, you can slowly widen the window so you can let more light in. In other words, you open the capacity of a person to deal with the input that's coming at them. And so with your congregations and with you as leaders, think about how do you not just suddenly open up the blinds? I don't know about you, but first thing in the morning, if somebody suddenly opens up the blinds, I'm screaming, I'm hiding myself under a blanket, I don't want to come out, I don't have enough coffee, you know, all of that starts to happen, right? You want to slowly open the window so that folks have time to adjust and get comfortable with each other again, to process all of these deep emotions that are coming up inside them, to slowly open the window where everybody can kind of have some capacity. And even after you do that, there will be some of your folks, and it may be you, who it takes a long time to really be able to enter back in a way that's helpful and meaningful. So look for lots of opportunities to take this at a slow pace. Start with distance things outdoors, keep doing some things online, think about what works in your congregation so that you're able to have that connection, but folks are not getting overwhelmed by having everybody together at once or trying to get back to something that they may think they want, but aren't quite emotionally, or particularly their brain is not quite ready to process yet. Because really it is between the ears. It's the processing part of our brains that we want this thing, but then it's too much. And so you want to pay attention to that gap. How are you slowly opening the window rather than just going back to the sunlight that used to be? Yeah, that's what I have.
Oh, right? The last year and a half has been traumatic for many of us on some level. And so it's important to acknowledge and name where we've been and where we are so we can begin to take those next steps and to heal. I don't know about you, but some places where I notice this in my life and where it becomes clear to me as I move through the world every day, sometimes I find myself being overreactive. I think, wow, that was kind of a big reaction to that situation. And I notice it too in sometimes when I feel like there's so many things that are so uncertain and feel out of control that I really have to exert control, a lot of control on the things I can control, which is not always the way to go when you have a teenager in the house. I also notice that sometimes it's easier to blame, to point the finger, to have a target, to put some of that than it is to sit in our own fear and uncertainty and despair. So those are the ways that, some of the ways that I notice that I've been through something big. And it's not just gonna right itself yet overnight. We just have to take those small steps, the next right step at a time, which is what we're trying to do here as a congregation very intentionally. The next right small steps that we can see. And so I think the best way for us to do that communally and individually, the best ways that we can start to heal are to pace ourselves, to understand that sometimes and for a while it's just okay to not be okay. That is okay. And it is okay to nurture ourselves in that, to name it, to take our time, lots of space between the logs for air. Make the choices that are right for us. No urgency, don't add stress. That, like Reverend Sunshine was saying, that white supremacy culture of everything has to happen right now and it has to be bigger and better. We can give ourselves permission to no longer participate in those pathological things in our culture. We can take a step back and say, now let's take a look at that. Does that really have to be done right now? What are the options? And I know that when I'm able to do that and give myself a little extra permission, wow, is that a big shoulder drop? So I think what else we do is we determine to let go of perfectionism and perfectionistic tendencies. It is okay not to be perfect. It is okay to not do it all perfectly. It is okay to not do it all right now. Perfectionism is a real joy killer. And it comes from that place of being terrified that we are not enough. We're on a human path and we are enough. We are perfectly flawed as humans and we are enough. This time has exacerbated that cycle of feeling like we should be doing more, but we're tired and we're not motivated, and that just makes us feel worse. And so I want to remind us that in our beautifully flawed, imperfect selves, we are enough. I'm going to invite you to say that with me this morning. I am enough. Put your hand on your heart if you would like to do that and really say it deeply to yourself. I am enough. It's such an invitation to be gentle with ourselves, to extend grace, to see where we might want to do some letting go, and to reach out for connection, for conversation, for help. This is a time not to be hanging alone, isolating, but to be doing these next steps of healing and coming out and beginning to move forward in community. Let's be people of encouragement rather than criticism. Let's extend grace. Let's do the work of moving forward right from this place where we are now and do it together. What better place than in spiritual community? What better way than together? I'm going to read once more in closing the words that I read for our chalice lighting words earlier. Our community exists to proclaim the truth that each human being is infinitely precious, that the meaning of our lives lies hidden in the interactions that we have with each other. We wish to be in a place where we encounter each other with wonder, with appreciation, where we call out each other's strengths, wisdom, and compassion that we never knew we had. May it be so. Amen.
Make us so where we are sanctuary. holy, loved right through. With thanksgiving, we are living sanctuary anew.
I want to thank you so much for joining us for our service this morning, both on Zoom and in this room together. And you're invited to make that leap anytime you feel ready to come back and make a reservation here. We're doing everything that we can to make it as COVID safe as possible. And I'm feeling really good about the beginning that we have made in that together. I want to make you aware of a few program opportunities that we have coming up for adult spiritual development. Again, very carefully designed with this particular time in mind. There are 2 lunchtime groups. Kristen's leading one and I'm leading one. One on first and third Wednesdays starting October 20th. And then another one on second and fourth Tuesdays starting October 12th. A time of conversation, a time of setting some intentions, some goals for going deeper spiritually, ideal programs for coming out of this particular time, taking those next few right steps in community, what feels right for each of us. And there's a reflection group on the book, My Grandmother's Hands, and that is going to continue to meet on the first and third Wednesdays, and you'll need to sign up for that right away if you want to participate in that, and then that group will close. All of these links for those on Zoom are happening in the chat right now. You can just click on that and sign up to register. And Grace Moore has an announcement joining us on Zoom.
Hello. So I'm Grace Moore. Here, I'll start over again. Hi, I'm Grace Moore. And for many years now, I've been involved with the UU Small Group Ministry program here at UUFNN. At first, they were called Chalice Circles, and more recently, then they've been called Gathering Groups. This year, we're going to be gathering in love, specifically revolutionary love. Our monthly programs will be developed out of the work of Valerie Kaur, and I don't know if you all have ever heard of her, but she is a follower of the Sikh faith, and she's also a very long-standing social justice leader, especially starting after 9/11. She's also the author of a book called See No Stranger, and out of that she created this program, and we're going to be using that program as a basis for the programs that we're going to be having for our small group ministry. I am so excited about this program that we're going to be offering this year, and I have been doing this for a long time now, and it's just this may be my favorite year. So I absolutely love how it includes self-reflection on a deeper level within our group and community building like that, but it also brings in an element of social justice work that we've never had in the Chalice Circle program, Gathering Group program, Small Group Ministry program. And that's, I think, going to make a very big difference this year from previous years' flavor, but it's still going to have all the aspects of previous years too. I think this kind of work is so important right now in our world for where we are and where we're going. I really invite all of you to join. This is not a book group. We're not going to necessarily be reading the book, but the book is a great read, and I do encourage it, even if you don't join the groups, but specifically if you do, it's great. But it is still a reflection group, a small group practice in listening and sharing. A time to reflect on the themes that we bring up and connect more deeply to the individuals. It's a great way to get to know people, even if it's on Zoom. We'll probably be meeting a lot on Zoom, especially in the beginning, but maybe in person as things change. Some groups will be only Zoom for the whole time. And so people from all over, even if you're not in Reno, you can join those groups. I hope that you'll join me in this program. Sign-up information should be in the chat box soon. If it's not, it's also been in the e-announce that Carol sends out. Feel free to call me or contact Kristen if you have any other questions. or anything I can answer about the program. So please sign up. It's going to be starting at the end of this month, beginning of November, first group meetings. Thanks so much. Bye.
Thank you, Grace. So all of those programs that were just mentioned, there's a link in your chat if you're on Zoom. Otherwise, the links are in your email that you get from us. So we really encourage your participation in those. There'll be some wonderful connection opportunities. I have some amazing news for you this morning, for all of us. The head of the Syrian family that we have been sponsoring as a refugee family for some years now, there's going to be a story on that family on Channel 4, 6 o'clock news tomorrow, Monday, 6 o'clock, Channel 4, because Mason has opened up his own business. It's a tailor shop in the little strip mall next to the Atlantis, and he is the first refugee since the Northern Nevada International Settlement Program began to start his own business. This is quite an accomplishment. We're so excited for Mason. His business is called, I have it here somewhere. Mason for Fashion is the name of the business. And we are so excited to have walked this journey with them with the family for a number of years now. So look for that spot tomorrow at 6 o'clock news on Channel 4, and we celebrate with them. We're so excited. Those who are on Zoom, join in your small groups for coffee hour conversations. Those who are here, you can take those conversations out front or out on our patio as soon as we close our service. And those who are on Zoom are invited to get raucous with our next song, and those of us who are here will not be singing out loud, but you're invited to clap, stamp your feet, dance if you want, full expression with Lean on Me, perfect song for today.
Sometimes in our lives, we all have pain, we all have sorrow, but if we are wise, we know that there's always tomorrow. Lean on me when we're not strong, not be afraid. I'll help you pray. It won't be long till I'm gonna need somebody to lean on. Please swallow our pride. If I have them, you need to now I can feel those of your needs that will not shine on me. When I'm strong and I'm a friend, I till I need somebody to lean on. If there is a road you have to bear that you can't carry, just call me, lean on you're not strong, you're not somebody to lean. We're not gonna really clap here. You just call on me, brother, when you need a hand. We all need somebody to lean on. I have a problem. I just might have a problem. Need somebody to lean on me. When you're strong, I'll be your friend. I won't be it won't be long till I'm gonna need somebody to lean on. Thank you. Thank you.
So, beloved, your homework for this week is to say to yourself 8 or 10 times a day, I am enough. We offer a gesture one to another as we connect with those who are on Zoom and they connect with each other. Would you receive the blessing? You are indeed enough. You are beautiful just as you are. You are strong. You are taking those next right steps. Give yourself the gift of grace and wonder and beauty. Blessed be, amen, and namaste.